Stop. Before you keep scrolling, answer this one question. If your job disappeared tomorrow, how long could you survive on what you have right now? Not thrive, survive. Most men in their 30s can answer that question in under 4 seconds. And the answer scares them. Here is what nobody tells you about wealth. The version you were sold, work hard, save 10%, retire at 65, was designed by people who needed you to stay employed. It was never designed to set you free. It was designed to keep you useful. There's a guy named Marcus. He's 34. He worked at a logistics company in Columbus, Ohio for 9 years. Good salary. $72,000 a year. He wasn't broke. He wasn't struggling. He was exactly what the system calls successful. And on a Tuesday afternoon in March, sitting in his car during a lunch break, scrolling his phone exactly like you're doing right now, he realized he had built nothing that belonged to him. That moment, that specific, cold, fluorescent parking lot moment, changed everything for Marcus. And it can change everything for you, but only if you understand what he figured out next. Because what he discovered wasn't a hustle. It wasn't a side gig. It was a structural truth about money that most people spend their entire working lives never learning. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what Marcus did to start building real wealth. Not someday, not with a windfall, starting with what he already had. But first, you need to understand why everything you've been told about money is working against you right now. Marcus isn't a character in a motivational poster. He's the guy who does everything right. He shows up on time. He takes on extra projects. He puts $400 a month into his 401k because his HR rep told him to, and it seemed responsible. He drives a 5-year-old Honda Accord because he read somewhere that new cars depreciate the moment you drive them off the lot. He makes all the correct moves. And yet, when he opens his banking app at 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday night, lying in bed while his girlfriend sleeps beside him, there's this hollow feeling in his chest that no amount of correct moves has ever touched. Here is the first lie the system told you. It told you that income equals wealth, that if you earn more, you accumulate more, and eventually you reach a finish line called retirement. But income and wealth are not the same thing. They never were. Income is a treadmill. Wealth is a machine that runs while you sleep. Marcus had income. Solid income. What he had zero of was a machine. So what does a machine look like? And more importantly, what does it cost to build one? Here's where most financial content fails you. It shows you the machine after it's already running, the rental property portfolio, the dividend account paying $4,200 a month, the index fund that's grown to $600,000. It shows you the destination and skips the departure entirely. That's not useful. That's a highlight reel. What you need is the blueprint for mile zero. And here's the disruption. The cost of mile zero is lower than you've been conditioned to believe. Not zero, but shockingly, structurally, mathematically lower. A fractional share of an S&P 500 index fund costs less than your lunch today. A high-yield savings account, earning 4.8% annual interest, requires no minimum balance at institutions like Marcus Invest or SoFi. A Roth IRA, one of the most powerful tax-sheltered wealth vehicles the US government makes available to ordinary earners, costs exactly zero to open. Marcus knew about some of these things. He'd heard the terms. But knowing the name of a tool and knowing how to use it in the right sequence, that's the gap. That's the space between people who build wealth and people who earn income their entire lives and wonder where it went. And the size of that gap isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in understanding, which means you can close it starting today. But first, you need to understand the single concept that separates every wealth builder from everyone else. And it's not what you think it is. The concept is called the spread, not the Wall Street kind, not the sandwich kind, the personal spread. The distance between what you earn and what you deploy. Most people manage their money like a bathtub with a running faucet and an open drain. Money flows in. Money flows out. The tub never fills. The spread is what happens when you close the drain just enough Not completely, not painfully, just enough that water starts to accumulate. Marcus's spread, when he calculated it honestly for the first time in March, was $640 a month. That's it. After rent, after food, after his car payment, after subscriptions he half remembered signing up for, $640 remained. He stared at that number for a long time. He'd been telling himself for years that he didn't have enough to invest seriously. $640 felt like confirmation of that story. It felt small. It felt inadequate. He was wrong. Here's what $640 a month becomes when you deploy it with discipline and structure. At a 10% average annual return, the S&P 500's historical average over the last 50 years, $640 a month becomes a $145,000 in 10 years. Not from savings alone, from compounding, the machine taking your deposit and multiplying it across time. Keep that same pace for 20 years. The number becomes $489,000, 30 years, and you are looking at $1,417,000. From $640 a month, from a man who told himself he didn't have enough to start. That calculation didn't make Marcus feel immediately better. It made him feel something more uncomfortable. It made him feel the weight of the years he'd already let pass. He was 34. If he'd started at 24, if someone had shown him this at 24, that $1.4 million would already have a decade of compounding head start. That's not guilt. That's information, and the correct response to information is not grief. The correct response is acceleration. But here is what Marcus realized next, and this part is critical. Compounding alone isn't enough, because there's a force working against you right now, silently, that most investment conversations never mention. And if you don't account for it, the math breaks down completely. The force is inflation, but not the version you hear about on the news, not the 3% or 4% figure the Federal Reserve tracks. The personal inflation rate, the specific rate at which your particular lifestyle costs more each year. Because your lifestyle isn't a consumer price index, it's a custom portfolio of choices, habits, and commitments that evolves with your income. And it has a name: lifestyle creep. When Marcus got a $6,000 raise at 31, he spent $5,200 of it within 8 months. Not on anything dramatic, a slightly nicer apartment, a gym membership he actually liked, 2 weekend trips he deserved, a standing delivery subscription that cost $18 a month and felt negligible. Each decision was individually defensible. Collectively, they neutralized his raise. His spread didn't grow. His income did. Two very different things. So here's the question Marcus finally asked himself in that parking lot. The question that rewired everything. What if every raise, every bonus, every tax refund, what if 50% of every unexpected dollar went directly into the machine before it touched his lifestyle? Not 100%, not a punishment. 50%, half for life, half for the machine. That rule, executed automatically, without debate, without negotiation, is what financial researchers call pay yourself first at the margin. And it's what separates the people who accidentally spend all their raises from the people who accidentally get rich. That reframe hit Marcus somewhere specific. It wasn't the numbers he'd seen before. It was the word automatically. He'd always treated investing as a decision, something he'd do with what remained after living. What he understood now was that investment has to be the first line item. Not the last, not the remainder. The first, before lifestyle has a chance to absorb it, before the brain can construct a justification for why this month is the exception. So Marcus set up 2 automatic transfers on a Sunday afternoon in late March. The first, $400 into his Roth IRA, triggered the day after every paycheck. The second, $240 into a high-yield savings account at 4.85% APY, labeled in his app with one word: machine. Not emergency fund, not savings. Machine. The label mattered. The label told his brain what that money was for. And then he closed the app, made coffee, and waited. But waiting was the wrong instinct. Because the next piece of this system isn't about patience at all. It's about leverage. And leverage is where everything changes speed. Here's the part Marcus didn't expect. Once the machine was running, even at $640 a month, even in its smallest, quietest form, something psychological shifted. He stopped experiencing money as a flow he was chasing and started experiencing it as a system he was building. That shift alone changed his financial behavior faster than any budget app, any spending tracker, any accountability partner ever had. But the shift accelerates even faster when you understand the third concept. And this one is the one most men in their 30s miss entirely. It doesn't require more income. It doesn't require more discipline. It requires a different question entirely. You're now at the halfway point of what Marcus figured out. And here is what's still ahead, because this is the part most financial videos skip entirely. We're about to get into leverage. Not debt leverage, not the kind that destroys people, the structural kind that multiplies your machine without requiring more input. We're also going to talk about the one decision Marcus made at 34, that a financial modeler later told him was worth $312,000 in lifetime wealth. One decision, $312,000. But before we get there, here is what you stand to lose if you close this video right now. You've seen the spread. You've seen what $640 a month becomes. You've seen how lifestyle creep silently neutralizes raises, but none of that works without the third concept. The third concept is what transforms the machine from a slow build into a compounding engine. And you're 90 seconds away from understanding it completely. Here's the number that should make you stay. Marcus's net worth at 34, when he started, was $18,400. 3 years later, at 37, it was $91,000. Not because he earned dramatically more, because he understood something structural about the way wealth accelerates once you cross a specific threshold. That threshold has a name, and you're about to hear it. The threshold is called escape velocity. In physics, escape velocity is the speed an object needs to break free from a gravitational field. In personal finance, escape velocity is the point at which your money generates more growth per year than your annual contributions. The machine starts feeding itself. For Marcus, that moment arrived when his investment portfolio crossed $87,000. At a 10% average return, $87,000 generates $8,700 in a single year. His annual contribution was $7,680. The machine was now outrunning the man. That's not magic. That's math. But it only works if you protect the machine from two specific threats that derail most people before they ever reach escape velocity. The first threat is emergency drag. Unplanned expenses that force you to raid your investment accounts and reset the compounding clock. The second threat is tax erosion. The quiet percentage the IRS takes from wealth-building moves made in the wrong account structure. Marcus protected against the first threat by building a $14,000 liquid buffer, 3 months of core expenses, in that high-yield account before he increased his investment contributions, not before he started investing. Simultaneously with it, the buffer and the machine grew at the same time, both on autopilot. It took 11 months to fully fund the buffer. During those 11 months, his Roth IRA contributions never paused. The second threat, tax erosion, is where that $312,000 decision lived. Marcus had been contributing to a traditional 401k through his employer, tax-deferred, meaning he'd pay taxes on withdrawal in retirement. His financial advisor, a fee-only advisor he found through napfa.org, which charges by the hour rather than by commission, ran a side-by-side model. Roth 401k versus traditional 401k. Assuming retirement at 62, assuming a marginal tax rate of 22% throughout. The Roth option, paying taxes now, growing tax-free forever, came out $312,000 ahead over Marcus's investment lifetime. One checkbox, one form, $312,000. Marcus changed that checkbox on a Tuesday. It took 4 minutes, and when he closed his laptop, nothing felt different. That's the strange, counterintuitive truth about the most powerful financial moves. They feel like nothing when you make them. The drama is invisible. The results are enormous. But now that the machine was protected, tax-optimized, and building toward escape velocity, Marcus faced the final question. The one question that separates people who build wealth from people who build impressive account balances and still feel trapped. The question Marcus asked himself at 37, sitting at the same kitchen table where he'd once opened his banking app with dread, was this: what number means free? Not rich, not wealthy in the abstract, free. The specific decimal point number at which work becomes optional. Financial planners call this your FIRE number, financial independence, retire early. The formula is almost offensively simple. Take your annual living expenses, multiply by 25, and the result is the portfolio size that generates those expenses indefinitely at a 4% withdrawal rate. Marcus's annual expenses were $48,000, his FIRE number $1,200,000. At his current trajectory, $640 a month, at 10% average returns, with projected income growth increasing contributions over time, a financial model placed his arrival at that number at age 54. Not 65, 54, 11 years ahead of the default. 11 years of Tuesday afternoons in March, that would belong to him. But here's what the FIRE number does beyond giving you a target. It changes the psychological relationship between you and your job. When you have no number, every frustrating day at work feels permanent. Every difficult conversation with your manager, every reorg announcement, every Sunday night dread, it lands with full weight because there's no visible exit. When you have a number, and when you can see your portfolio closing the distance to that number every single month, the same difficult day feels different. It has a context. You're not trapped. You're in transit. Marcus described it this way in a message he sent to a friend 8 months after starting the machine. I used to dread Mondays because Monday meant 5 more days before I got 2 days back. Now I actually don't mind Mondays. Not because the job changed, because I changed. I know where I'm going. I know how far away it is. That changes everything. He attached a screenshot of his portfolio, $43,200. Not to brag. To show the friend that the number didn't need to be large to change you. The machine just needed to exist. And that is the answer to the question at the top of this video. Can you build wealth with no starting money? Here's the precise answer. You cannot build wealth with no resources at all, but the resources required are almost certainly smaller than you've told yourself. The spread Marcus needed was $640. The knowledge he needed fit inside a Sunday afternoon. The time required to set up his entire system, 2 automatic transfers, 1 account change, 1 fee-only advisor consultation, was under 3 hours total. 3 hours against 11 years of freedom. Here's what this video cannot give you. It cannot give you the Tuesday afternoon in the parking lot. That moment, the specific fluorescent gray, engine idling, lunch break moment, when the reality of your situation becomes undeniable. That moment you have to arrive at yourself. But you can borrow Marcus's shortcut. You don't have to wait for the crisis to ask the question. Ask it right now. How long can you survive without your income? What is your spread? What is your FIRE number? Write those 3 numbers down tonight. 3 numbers? That's the entire starting point. The machine doesn't require a windfall. It doesn't require a second job. It doesn't require you to become someone different. It requires a decision, made once, automated immediately, and then protected from the 2 threats, emergency drag and tax erosion. Everything else is compounding doing its work while you live your life. If this hit something real for you, if you felt the cold recognition that Marcus felt in that parking lot, hit subscribe, because the next video covers the exact account sequence Marcus used, which accounts to open first, which order to fund them, and how to structure the automation so it runs without any monthly decision-making at all. That video is already up. The link is in the description. Marcus went from $18,400 to $91,000 in 3 years. The machine is waiting. The only question left is whether you build it today or explain to yourself in 10 years why you didn't.